Hey y'all, it's Tay with Mom on the Spectrum, and today I'm back with a little bit lighter video than the one that we had last week. Last week my video was from grief to gratitude, and it was about coming to terms with my autism diagnosis. It got a little heavier than I intended it to. I realized there is a lot of grief underneath what I've been feeling the past year and a half, and I heard from a lot of you after that video with really personal things that you've experienced as a result of your autism diagnosis. So I thank y'all so much for opening up and sharing that with me. I think it's really important to share our experiences so we feel less alone and we can help each other through the tough stuff. But today I really wanted to focus on some of the amazing aspects of being on the spectrum, because there are a lot. Today we're going to talk about autistic strengths and what sets us apart from people who aren't on the spectrum. If you're new to my channel, if you could please subscribe to this video. There's a red button right underneath the video. All it takes is one click, and that helps my videos show up for more people who are looking for them. It's the best way that you can support my channel and help it grow. You can also like this video, give it a thumbs up if it has a positive impact on you, and share it with somebody else who might benefit from it. I started this channel because I felt really alone as an autistic mom who was diagnosed at age 31. And so your support in helping this channel grow really means a lot, because it means more people like me who are looking for resources can find them more easily. I found this awesome list of autistic strengths that I'm going to be reading off of today. I started making my own list, and when I started reading others' experiences, I found really cool resources. I'll make sure to post a link in the description to the chart that I'm reading off of today. So before we jump into it, autism is a spectrum, and there's so many different ways that people on the spectrum experience autism. So not all of these strengths may apply to you, and you'll probably have plenty of additional strengths that aren't on this list. So let me hear from you in the comments what you feel your autistic strengths are that you contribute to the world. Let me know if there's any that you just really don't resonate with. But I think it's really neat that all of our experiences are so different. I think it keeps us learning and growing and asking questions. Today I'm sharing just kind of an overview of general autistic strengths that many people on the spectrum do feel that they possess, or maybe aren't aware that they do. So let me kind of coax them out of you today. Number one, attention to detail. All you have to do is ask my partner. My husband would be like, yes, she notices everything, especially when it comes to our senses, like what we see, what we smell, what we touch, what we hear, what we listen to. We can be very particular, and we have kind of this innate ability to see things that other people don't see. If you're familiar with the Enneagram, I feel like Enneagram 5s have a lot of autistic traits. I'm not saying that if you're a 5, you're autistic, but kind of the researcher needing to always be like, learning and uncovering more things. That's kind of what I feel like on a day-to-day basis. So I can definitely relate to paying attention to detail. You know, my projects in school, like I would not be able to submit them until I had turned over every rock, you know, just like, what about this? What if this creates a question here that I need to answer? And so I try to come at things from every angle to make sure that I'm covering all my bases. And I feel like that's a great quality to have, especially in an employee. The second skill is deep focus. If you're on the spectrum, you probably have a special interest, which is something that you find your time committing a lot of time to practicing, researching, studying. I have the ability to deeply focus on things that interest me to the point that I don't hear other people talking to me. Number 3, observational skills. I think this kind of goes along with attention to detail. We're just very observant. So maybe in a social setting where other people would be more interested in the conversation and what's being said, we might pay more attention to what's in the room, what the needs are, if there's not adequate seating, if the lighting is too bright, if somebody is hungry or thirsty or needs their beverage refilled. We're very observant about what is going on in the room or in the environment around us. Number 4, our ability to absorb and retain facts. My daughter is an excellent example of this. For fun, she's 7. She watches documentaries, and all day I'll hear, hey mom, you want to hear something interesting? I'm always like, sure, tell me something interesting. And she's just full of all of these little facts. She checks out almanacs from the library. She's a great example of this hunger for understanding the world and learning facts and sharing that with other people. We also have visual skills. So I feel like I might not be as strong in this area, but I definitely know there's people in the spectrum who just thrive with visual skills. I think Temple Grandin is an excellent example of this. I'm just now getting familiar with her work, but she can just envision, I think it's like cow pens or like agricultural systems to keep animals functioning on a farm the way that they need to. And she would just design these really intricate systems that nobody had thought of before. So whether it's being able to visualize things in a creative way, which I honestly have trouble with, that's not one of my skill sets, or learning visually, I would say that I really resonate with that a lot. If I see it, I can do it. I feel like in that sense, I'm a very quick learner. Like if somebody's speaking at the front of a class, I don't learn very well that way at all. I have to see it in writing or see somebody actually do it. I think a lot of times kids in general, when you're trying to teach them something, they're like, here, let me do it. They don't want you to do it for them. They want to do it. Well, that has carried over into my adult life, and I don't want anybody to do anything for me. I want to do everything by myself and learn how to do it bit by bit so that I can replicate it. That kind of drives me crazy sometimes because I want to learn how to do everything, and sometimes I find myself just like, why do you need to know how to do that? Let's back off and stop trying to figure out how the Amazon production line works. You don't need to spend your day thinking about that. Okay, sixth skill is expertise. In-depth knowledge about different subjects that you might not get from anybody else. So a lot of times people on the spectrum will research something so thoroughly that they know facts about something that nobody else knows. An example that just came to mind is Sean Evans on Hot Ones. I haven't thought about it until this moment, but I'm not saying he's autistic and I have no suspicions that he is, but the way he runs interviews, if you haven't watched Hot Ones, it's ridiculous. It's where celebrities eat hot wings that get increasingly spicy. I think probably an autistic person's worst nightmare because it's like extreme sensory experiences on camera. No, thank you. But anyway, Sean Evans, the way that he runs his interviews, he will ask questions that you can tell the celebrities have never been asked before. Like he'll bring up something super random from 20 years ago that they did in high school in some random after school club. That level of attention to detail and like expertise about subjects, I think is something that people on the spectrum are really good at. Okay, number 7, methodical. How do you say that? Methodical. Good with methodical approach. That's me. I am so good with logistics. I remember an assignment that I had in 3rd grade and my teacher was Miss Leva, and we had to, maybe you've done this assignment, we had to write down how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And she would read every single word on that paper and do exactly what you said. So if you said spread peanut butter on the bread, but you forgot to say take off the lid, she would just take the jar of peanut butter and rub it across the bread. And I remember being like, I will figure this out. And so just sitting down and writing like every single detail that you needed to know to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and making sure that other people can follow it. I think that's such a great representation of that skill for me. Like I thrive on clear methods. I think I'm really good at creating those experiences for others. Number 8, novel approaches. Really interesting and unique perspectives on problem solving. I touched on this a little bit in my last video, but it's almost something that we need to survive because we are different and we do stand out from the pack. We've had to think creatively on our feet in order to be okay in certain situations or in order to make it work being in public school or being in a job that requires you to do a lot of teamwork, whatever it might be. We've had to think on our feet and be really creative to come up with solutions to our problems that might look different than other people's. And I think that's really, really advantageous, especially in the job market today with so many IT jobs, software development, that kind of stuff, which I'm looking into. I think it's super helpful because everybody's looking for kind of the cutting edge and how to do it just a little bit differently. So I think people on the spectrum have a huge asset there. Okay, number 9. Creativity. This kind of goes back with the last point of novel approaches, but I know many people in the spectrum, they just get lost in their creativity. And there's so many people in this world, like inventors, who have brought something truly unique into the world because of their ability to be so distinctly creative. I was curious, so I just looked up a list of famous autistic people in history. I haven't verified this list, but I'm just going to share some of the names and we can imagine the types of creative minds that have brought unique inventions into the world. But it's got people like Charles Darwin, Emily Dickinson, Albert Einstein, Bill Gates, Thomas Jefferson, Steve Jobs, Benjamin Banneker, Susan Boyle. She's such a beautiful singer. And she really inspires me because she got her start with that later in life. I always think stories like that are really inspiring. So I feel like I'm still figuring out like what I want to do with my life, you know? There's a lot more on the list and I'm sure you can do a quick Google search and just look for famous autistic people in history. There's a lot of people who have given us really unique ideas and inventions and technology that we wouldn't have had if we didn't have their brilliant mind. The last 3 I feel like are my top 3 strengths: tenacity and resilience. Oh my goodness, if I commit to something, I will see it through to the end. If I start a job, I will do everything in my power to finish it at the highest level that I can. And if I can't find a solution to something, I will drive myself crazy until I find a solution to something. It reminds me a lot of that quote from Thomas Edison about making the light bulb. Okay, I just looked up the quote because I was going to butcher it. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work." And that's how I operate. I don't fail. I keep going until I figure out how to make it work. Okay, the next one, accepting of differences. I really feel like this is something that I was just born to be good at. I know in this current climate, things are really tricky because there's a lot of division. I just feel like because I've seen the world so differently and had to be so observant of other people's experiences to try to figure out my own, it's given me so much grace and compassion for how other people see the world. I'm very sensitive to injustice. I'm very upset by anything in TV and movies that is unjust or unfair, to the point that sometimes I just can't watch them because I'll be in a huge funk and I'll be really upset by by it. My daughter is the exact same way, especially for animals, like any type of animal violence or injustice. Not at all. I really value that a lot about myself and the other people I know on the spectrum. I just think we have an innate tolerance, more than a tolerance, an acceptance and a validation for the way that other people see the world. There are so many different ways to interpret things and so many different ideas and opinions to have, and it's so important that we hear everyone's voices. And then of course there's going to be people that we don't agree with. It doesn't mean that we need to silence those voices. I think it just means that for me it has meant that it's an opportunity to make my voice stronger and communicate what I do believe in, and also to set boundaries in a respectful way to protect me from ideas that I feel like don't add value to my life. But overall, I feel like I'm learning how to do that in a compassionate way, and I feel like that's a unique skill set that I have that I'm really proud of. And then lastly, integrity. I feel like most people that I've read about or met or interacted with on the spectrum have so much integrity. An example that popped into my head is my sweet 4-year-old son, one of the kindest souls on the planet. A couple of months ago, he was telling us something that wasn't true, and a couple of words into the sentence, he started crying, and he was like, "I'm so sorry, this is a lie. What I'm telling you is not true, and I'm so sorry, and I don't know why I did that." He's so precious. So I feel like that's a really good example. I cannot sleep, I cannot function if I tell a lie, if I don't see something through that I said that I would see through. And even when I really intend to see things through, I'll word it a different way rather than making a promise, because I'm like, who knows, especially in this world we're living in, like what's going to happen tomorrow. Whenever I decide to commit to a friendship or a relationship or a project or work or a position at school, I will only say yes if I know that I can contribute what is needed to make that a successful endeavor. And that's another thing that I really pride myself on in my life. I feel like my friends know that they can count on me. I feel like my past employers know that they can count on me. I feel like my students know that they can count on me. A lot of people on the spectrum are also very literal, and so whenever I speak, I'm very literal about what I will actually commit to, because I think it's very important to be true to your word and to be true to what you say you're going to do for other people. I think that makes the world a much safer place, creates a lot more trust and reliability, and I think that's one thing that people on the spectrum are amazing at. I feel like people on the spectrum are so important because we carry a lot of compassion, we carry a lot of acceptance for people who are different, and so I really value these strengths that I feel like so many of us on the spectrum share. I think it's important to regularly reflect on what you bring to the world that is good and noble and beautiful, especially when you are someone with a different kind of condition that lends you to seeing the world differently. So like in my last video, there's a lot of things that can bring grief or strife or anguish or loneliness, and I just want to remind you to take the time to reflect on what you do bring into the world that's beautiful, because there's so much of that. There are so many people on the spectrum throughout history that have made the world a better place because they dared to be different. I'm also learning though, it's definitely not about making it on a big stage. I feel like so many times we think in order for our strengths to be validated, they have to be seen by a lot of people. You might not like this idea. You can validate yourself. You can reflect on who you are and the truth inside of you, and you can believe that little by little every day. That will stoke this fire inside of you that becomes very vibrant and generates more creativity and more love and more compassion. I think for us on the spectrum, sometimes it's hard because we're really creative or talented or intelligent, but we don't feel comfortable with that recognition for it, or being on a stage or being in the spotlight. That's not important. You can contribute to the world quietly, and it can be just as meaningful as someone on the big screen or someone who's written about in textbooks. And in fact, I think a lot of the people, if you think about the people who matter the most to you in your life, the first person on your list is probably not going to be a movie star or a pro athlete. Those might be people that inspire you and that you look up to, but the people who mean the most to you and who have made the most significant impact on your life are most likely people who have had roles like teacher, mom, therapist, and those roles can actually be huge in transforming the world, because you might not be on a stage, you might not be on the big screen, but you're transforming people's self-acceptance and their ability to validate themselves and get their power from within. And that's the best gift of all. So I want to encourage you, if you don't feel seen for your autistic strengths, somebody sees it. Somebody in your life has been touched by what you bring into the world. And so I want to encourage you, you just keep doing what you're doing. You're not going to do it perfectly, and there's going to be days where you just want to lay in bed, and you might need to lay in bed and rest and recharge and recover, because all that's so important for us. But keep doing what you're doing, and do it with love for yourself, do it with love for the world, and know that the way that those strengths are seen, observed, experienced, that might look very different than how other people's strengths are observed or awarded or praised, but that doesn't mean that they're any less significant. In fact, I feel like there's a great humility and strength in working behind the scenes to do good. I hope that you were able to resonate with some of the strengths on the list. And again, I'd love to hear in the comments other strengths you feel like you have, and maybe if some of these strengths you're just like, whoa, definitely not me. Some videos that I've got coming up, I've had a request for more thoughts on what it means to be a parent with autism, what it's like to have ADHD and autism together. I have so many thoughts on that. The ADHD side of my brain is making it really hard for me to make that video. And honestly, y'all, like 20 other video ideas that are in the pipeline. So my goal is to get them up by Wednesday or Thursday. My kids are starting school this semester, so we've had a lot of changes there. Thank y'all for watching these videos. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Again, please do that if you haven't already, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!